Hey there, YouTube friends, Masked Bandit here. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I always appreciate it, and welcome to the first ever Planet Zoo tutorial. Well, that I've made. Welcome to the first ever tutorial I've ever made. I had a couple people ask me about building and things like that, especially for people who have never played Planet Coaster. So we're going to do a couple of these, and this first one is going to be a basic backstage building, a triple B. A lot of people like this super realistic aesthetic, where you concentrate on making sure things look like they serve a function and a purpose. And I thought, what better way to show a basics building than building a backstage building? I don't know how many words we're going to be in starting with B in this tutorial, but we're off to a good start so far. So in this tutorial, we will be building this structure with the accompanying details, and hopefully you'll learn a couple things if you're brand new to the Planet series. So with all that, sit right there and we'll get right with it. Okay, so here we are, and here's an overview of what we had built. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume you know what the pieces might function as, but not necessarily the best tools to put them together, and perhaps where to use certain features when and how. So we're going to build this. This is a staff building. It's actually two staff buildings. I wanted something a little wider, but I didn't want to use one of the in-game, one of the vet or something like that. I thought a staff building would be a good first place to start. So we are going to build this as we go. So first things first, we're going to jump into facilities, and we're going to pick out staff facilities. Find the staff site, and you're not going to want these. These are blueprints from Planet Coaster, from Frontier. Or Planet Coaster. These are Frontier blueprints. We don't want those. We're going to go to the staff room. And immediately you get the grid. And the grid is your best friend, but it's also your worst enemy. When building a structure, I like to try and stay on the grid as much as I can. And by on the grid, I mean attaching. You'll see. So I'm going to place this down, and immediately we are in a building. Now, anything that's on a grid is connected to that first item that we placed. And it's a good idea to make sure that you try to stay in this mode as much as possible. If you don't, it's okay. It's not that big of a deal. I'll show you what to do later on. But if you look at the reference here, we actually have two of these right next to each other, so we're going to go ahead and plop those in. For now, that's all we need as far as functionality goes. Now, if you were to close all the way out of it like this, nothing is selected. You click on your buildings. For staff buildings individually, if you want to edit the grid, because look, the grid's not up. These are the individual buildings. If you want to edit the grid, you're going to push R. That's a great hotkey. You're going to go over a lot of hotkeys in this tutorial. So R, and then press R again, and now the grid is back, and we are building in the group. Okay, so let's jump over to construction. We're already in it. Architecture and walls. What we're going to be using is one of the basic ones that come the minute you start, and that is the painted brick. And it's all alphabetical, so let's hop down here into our painted brick. And first things first, we need to cover up these. Actually, I think I rotated it. Yep, I put mine in the wrong way. So what we're going to do is we're going to click one of the buildings, select M, and we're going to push the Z key to rotate. Z key rotates things 90 degrees. So go ahead and put that there, and let's do the same thing. You move. Oh, I forgot to push move. See, there you go. Push M to move, Z to rotate. Now, can you do that without the hotkeys? Yeah, I think it's way easier to do that with the hotkeys, though. So let's close out of there. There we go. Now our grid is back. Sweet. So where do we start? Well, we start by covering the doors. If I go to the painted brick wall, here they are. Here's the piece. Now, I am using the default color because this is just a backstage building, but if you wanted to change color, it's as easy as going over to this tab, scrolling down, and here's your color palette. Pretty standard. This carries over directly from Planet Coaster. If you don't want this, you can go up here to the swatches, and then you have your full RGB color thing, hex codes and all that. If you know a specific hex code, pop it in there. But for us, for now, we're going to remain with default. We'll add some color accents, and it's really nice. This is a new. I think this is a new piece to Planet Zoo, but it covers these walls very, very nicely. Or the doors. And if you scroll, and if you reel around to the back, you'll see that we have a wall shop, but it also functions as a window cover. Pretty smart by Frontier to make them the same pieces. And we're already looking better now. So I'm going to grab my 4-meter wall. I'm going to press Z to rotate. And I'm going to, now you'll notice, this is important, we're going to use this feature in just a second. You can either put it on one side of the grid or the other. I always try to keep it on the inside, so that it's not sticking out. Because when it sticks out, what I'll notice if I Control Z to undo, look at the corner. Here, you can see that seam, but when I attach it, the seam goes away. That's built into the scenery pieces. So you can see right away when I make a corner, look, immediately, look, that seam goes away, and it looks much, much nicer. So make sure you're snug up against the building. Go ahead and cover up the building. Now, you might be thinking, well, what's the point of that other piece? What's the other point of that? Well, the nice thing is you can do a little bit of layering here. So if I scroll up and go to the metal plank wall 1 meter, and I scroll up, there, you'll notice also we can change the grid size and the grid height. I'm keeping it 4 and 4 for now. I think we are going to have to fiddle it when we put the roofs in. In fact, we're going to have to do it right now. We'll turn that grid size down to 2. And now, rather than 1 big square, I have a little more options of where I can place it. And that's how I'm going to get this overhang. And it's also good to use this technique here. So now we can kind of paste it right on the wall. Now you are going to have a little bit of overlap here. You might experience some Z fighting, but to me, that's something worth having to get a bit more control. So here we're not going to be on the outside. We're actually going to be on the inside. So we're doing that. And we're going to create this nice little overhang here, which just adds a little bit of interest so we don't have literally a box. Now, I will be doing another more advanced tutorial with a bit more of an advanced building that looks a little fancier. So don't worry if you're like a little concerned, because this is really basic. I wanted this first one to be basic. So windows are next. To get to the windows, let's hop to the Doors and Windows tab. I like to make sure I see just my windows, and I'm using the Planet Zoo window. If we wanted to change the color, down there is where we would do so, but on our reference, we didn't, so we're not going to. On this side, you could press F. It doesn't work over here, but over here you could press F and see how it now snaps to the center of that gridded piece, which is pretty cool. You'll notice these are not gridded. You can place them. If I unselect F, I can place those anywhere I want on the wall. But for me, I want them right there and right there. And then for these, I'm going to try and eyeball it as best I can. If you look, I put it actually probably lower than where the other ones are, which is fine. We're going to put that right there. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. And that's the windows. Pretty easy peasy. Squeezies of lemons. Let's work on the roof. The roof for this, I actually used 2. I put in 2 different ones. I use the asphalt flat roof. These flat roofs are really nice. They're a new piece. They actually are really, really good. So what I've done is, you can see if I have it flush with the roof, we get that ugly look. Look, if I do this, you get that ugly, I don't like that, that's gross. So what I actually did, if you look at the reference, is they're sitting on top just a little bit. But this roof is thin enough that it actually doesn't look so bad. Now this, I don't know why all of a sudden I don't have any grid, so I'm going to come in here and go back and snap it to 1 meter, just so we can put it where we want. We want it. And of course, that's not going to work. Okay, so there we go. That's what I want. We're going to put it right there. And then it locks that in for us, maybe, if it's going to cooperate. Yeah, something weird going on with this. This was not doing this when I was building it earlier. Yeah, we got a little bit of a gap there, which is kind of bizarre. So if you're wondering, how do you raise things? You raise it by holding down the shift button. The shift button will raise. Here, let's just do this. If you can't get it exactly the way you want it, just Control D to duplicate. Control D will duplicate whatever piece you have selected. I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you, but I think you can keep up. If you want to take the piece at the same height that you have, Control D duplicates that piece for you, and we're going to actually drop it down here too, because if you look, we need, now where did I do it here? Here I did it actually up, yeah. So you can see it's just a little bit, because what I want is, I don't want that. That looks ugly under there. Always think about the underside. That's a detail a lot of people often miss. So we're going to plop in, if I can get the view the way I want it, and we'll plop in the roof. There. That's that. And that's as easy. That's that easy. Escape to clear everything out. So far we're looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it so far. Let's add some of the details to make it look a little bit better. So what we got is we're going to jump into walls, and we're going to go to columns, and we're going to find the same texture, the painted brick column, 4 meter. And I have a blue accent, and so I'm going to scroll down, pick my color wheel. Now it does show up here because I was using it earlier. It's this one, but if you were unsure, you could just play around, find which one that works for you. It doesn't have to be the same color I'm using if you're following along. It could be any color you want. Actually, we might change it up. Let's go ahead and make it. Let's be crazy here. Let's go with like let's go with this weird magenta. No, what is that? What color is that? I don't know. We're gonna go with that one. Apply. And now here's where we get a little bit more advanced. We're gonna activate the advanced move tool by pressing X. Up pops the grid. We can move it on the X or the Y, the X, and the Z, whichever one you want to be which. And if I push X again, that brings up the rotate tool. And right now, you can see it's snapping. I have the position snap on, and that's something I tend to use when building architecture, plants, and other things, which maybe we'll talk about another time. I don't. If you wanted to get rid of this, if you wanted it to be free, you press spacebar. And now it's however you want. If you want it to go back to the original grid you were on, you make sure before letting go of the mouse button, the left mouse button, you push spacebar again, and it'll go back to the grid it was on. If you were to let go, if you were to have freeform, and then I let go of the mouse, and then I push the spacebar, now it's going to be on its whatever grid. It reoriented itself, and now I can't get it straight, and that's a pain. So don't do that. What you're going to want to do is, again, activate it, and then you can go ahead and you can move it however you want, but don't release your finger off the mouse button until you know for a fact it's at the angle you want. We're not going to mess with that too much, though. We're going to slide it in. Why am I doing this and not just pressing F? Because when I just press F on the building, it actually puts it right there. And I got some Z, and that looked goofy. I want the overhang. I want to stick out. I want to see that trim. So that's what I'm doing there. So that easy. I put one there. Where else did I put them? Looks like all 4 corners. So we're going to put one on each corner. There you go. And it's, you know what? If it's not perfect, you know me. I'm okay with it not being perfect. As long as it looks pretty darn close to the passing eye, I am happy with that. To save ourselves some time, highlight one, hold down Shift, and click the other one. They are both highlighted. Control X to copy in place. Now it's different. So we have Control D. If I did Control D, it duplicates it, but they're freeform. And that's not what I want. So I'm going to Shift click both of them, Control X, and that copies them in place and brings up the advanced move. And now we can just slide them down the building and put them back here where we want them. Boom. That's that. We're pretty close. Like, I wanted this to be pretty straightforward. I wanted to do a really easy building where you got some easy details put in, and it wasn't that hard. Let's do the little like brick area here. Again, that's just a roof. So roofs and floors. Flat roofs and floors, and it's this one. It's the brick floor texture. One thing I did here is I set the grid as low as I could, or the height as low for as small of increments as I could, and slid down. Now, if you're really careful, if you're really paying attention, you could see inside. This is something we didn't have to think about in Planet Coaster. You can see inside here, and you can see that the brick texture is inside the building. In fact, if I go in the building, you can see it even better. We don't want to see it inside the building. At least I don't want to. Maybe you do. Maybe you want a brick floored staff building. If you do, you just got to really fiddle with it. I am holding down the Shift button the entire time to raise and lower. I don't want to see it. So there. Let's see. There. That's what we want. We've got the smaller grid size on so that we can have a half of a 4 meter square. So we can have 2 meters instead of 4. And I'm just going to give myself a little pathway there. And as far as building goes, that's about it. What kind of flowers are these? These are, let me see. Let me escape out of these. What are these? These are African daisies. Okay, so here's what I wanted to show you. So we have our structure here. It's 39 pieces. That's really small. But we don't have all those details in. Let's say you forget to open this up. You forget to open up. You forget to push R. Because remember, R will bring up the editing group. Let's say you forget that. You've just got the building. Oh, we don't have the sign on it. Oh, snap. So if you forget to put something on, it's okay. You click it, Like say that's a sign. We want to put a sign on. Let's click this and let's put it up here, and you'll see it pops up. Add to group 8. Okay, let's put it in there. Look what happened in the top corner over here. Editing group 8. It opened it for us. It's smart. Good job. Let's plop it in. There, and now it should be a part of the building. And it is. So now if I were to say move, press M to move the whole building, the sign comes with me. Escape. Put it back where it was. Let's say we're doing some planting though. What did I use? I used African Daisy 2M. Let's plop some of these in. All right, so I'm going to make sure that they're not connected. I just randomly throw some daisies in. Aren't those pretty? Oh, yeah, so nice. And then I think I put in some... Oh, I was in the flowers, that's why. I put in some of these. I put in some goldenrod, some large goldenrod. There we go. So I'm going to sync them a little bit. Again, holding shift. There we go. So now they're in. So now if I move the building, oh, let me get out of this. If I move the building, oh, the flowers didn't come with me. Darn. I messed up. What am I going to do? It's not hard. What you do is you hold down the I, you press I, up comes this multi-select tool. It's also down here. You can click it down here if you want. I prefer to use the shortcuts. One of the things I found with Planet Coaster is building's much more tedious than in something like a Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. And so you need to find all the shortcuts you can. So press I, highlight everything, and up here there's this little button, merge scenery into group. So it'll take all this stuff, and when I click on it, it's now a part of the building. So now if I were to move all of it, boom, it all comes with me. Look at that. So, for example, that tree, what kind of tree is this? It's a beech tree. I'm going to go into nature, go into trees, scroll down to beech, B-E-E, beech tree. That's too big. Let's do a small beech tree. The small beech tree, we're going to put it right there. Again, not part of the building, but that's okay. Press I, click them, add it. I've used that a ton, and it's really, really helpful. It's a really helpful way in case you just do some things and you decide you want all of it to move. It's not impossible. Let's talk paths really quick, because that's something, because we're going to start working on these little details now. The little details that are easy to do, but are often overlooked. So paths first. I'm going to use the default asphalt paths. I'm going to pop one in, and immediately things are a little funky. You can change width. We'll get into paths in another tutorial. You can change width with hotkeys with the brackets, and you can change lengths with plus and minus on the keyboard. But anyway, that's not what we're important. I want to click on this, align to grid. Click your path, put your path in. And I like the square edges, so we're going to put our path in, and now this is how people make plazas. Or at least how we did in Planet Coaster. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen in Planet Zoo. So we're going to come over this way, and it looks like I'm 3 deep over here. 1, 2, 3, yeah. I'm going to come down, and there's my path section here for this. We need to put the light post in, if you're curious where those are at. Construction and lights, and it's that easy. Let's plop our light post in. I put it over here. And there's also some hanging lights. This Planet Zoo wall lamp. This is what I use to light up the top of the building. Let's switch to nighttime. If you're unsure, come down here to this little sun and moon icon, and you have a slider. You can slide it anywhere you want. If you want at any time it to go back to whatever time of day it is in game, click the refresh button, and now we're on game time. But you can slide it, and it'll stay there. So let's go to nighttime. That's pretty dark. And let's plop a light in. So we're going to push X to do the advanced move, because these are a little fidgety. Let's close this out. Scroll down here. The white is important. The first color is the color of the fixture itself. The second color is the color of light that it's going to cast. I like to go into the orangey yellows here, orangey reds, and pick a really desaturated light. If you're curious about lighting, and I'm sure it's going to be the same in this game as it is in Planet Coaster, Mike Sheets on YouTube has a great tutorial all about lighting, as well as foliage that I'm sure he's going to be bringing back to this game. You could check that out on YouTube, search for Mike Sheets, and his lighting tutorial, which is fairly recent, is phenomenal. Basically, it boils down to you never want to be on the right side of the color palette. You always want to be here on the unsaturated and fairly down, fairly dim. So that way you can add more lights without blowing out your scene. So let's click some in. So I'm going to put one here. And that might be too light, actually. Let's make it a little bit brighter. There, that's a little better. Come over here and plop one in. Come over here. So it's just a little bit of light, and I wonder if it's just not dark enough. There. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down. Oh, I can't. See, I didn't add these to the building. Silly me. So I highlight, add. There. Now they're in there. Resume. So R to bring up the editor. Click, hold down Shift to multi-select. Bring them up. I like to sync them in. And if you wanted to, you could bring them back and see how they're going to play with the light a bit more. And there you go. Our lights are in, more or less. Boom. Let's jump back to daytime. Oh, that transition's intense. Wow. I'm going to go. We're still in the editing group. I'm going to come into walls. And I'm going to add the bottom one. I'm going to add the wooden plank, 4 meter. And my thought was, you can see the support across horizontally on the fences. My thought was have that facing in the direction it is now, because theoretically this side is going to be the show side, and so we would see the back of the fence here. That's my detail kind of brain kicking in. So people think this is super easy to make, but there's these little details like that you need to think about. So the bollards to keep cars from crashing into what we assume would be a pedestrian zone. These are the core zoo beams, and so beams are going to be in the columns. Core zoo beam, round, painted, 2 meter. They're really tall. Well, that's easy to fix. We just got to sink them into the ground. So you put them where you want them. Let's recolor them first. Color them yellow. That's the yellow I picked. You can use whatever you want. I don't know. We're going to sink them down about halfway till it looks about right to you. We're missing something to use for scale. In Planet Coaster, we have the little Archer animatronic, and we use that when deciding how tall to make things, because he is the perfect size of an in-game Pete. And one of the things that I'm really a stickler on is scale. Like, I want it to feel like this is a real building. This might actually be a little tall, but I think it looks okay. So we've got our bollards in, and we only did 4 here. Actually, ours are a little tall. Let's sync them. And because they're all part of the scenery group, you can select all of them. If they were not part of the scenery group, you would not be able to select them. As a group, you'd have to select them individually, which is why it's always beneficial to make sure that they're all part of the same group, so you can multi-select them and work with them together like that. To get the parking lines, it's really easy. Art shapes, flat art shapes, and I think I used, we could use this size, the 3. It's bright purple. What's that? Or purple? Pink? I don't know. Maybe that's fuchsia. Anyway. Align it with the advanced move tool by pressing X and then X again. Rotate it. Notice I kept the grid on, right? And I jump down here and I'm going to recolor it. The bright white is way too white. Go down a couple shades. Make it look a little less shiny, because these art shapes are rather shiny. But by syncing them just until they poke through, you can get something that's rather convincing for a parking line. I think I did 3. Did I do 3? Yeah, I did 3. Okay. I have to keep checking my reference. I don't know what I did. Now this one's a little over too far. So escape to close out the editor. X to move it like that. We're eyeballing this. It doesn't need to be necessarily perfect. Just close enough. And I highlighted all 3. Control X. Again, Control X is your best friend when building. There you go. The last step is to add in the little concrete barrier, which is painted brick base trim. So back into architecture and column. No, not column. Excuse me. Wall decorations. There's all kinds of good things in here. One of the keys in building in Planet Coaster is to find things that you can use in a way other than how they were intended. Because yes, that's a brick trim, but it also works as a concrete stop for parking lots. And like these bollards, they're not bollards, but they look like it, and they work just fine. Oh, that's not the piece I used, is it? Nope, painted brick. Again, You'll notice I didn't use the brick wall because it's not recolorable. One of the things right now in the at least in the beta of Planet Zoo is that most things are not recolorable currently. So I used the same yellow that I used for the bollards, and there you go. And in not a lot of time, we have, I think, a really nice, simple Backstage building, complete with parking and bollards and a little bit of detail. And so that's probably going to do it for us on this first tutorial. If you enjoyed, if you learned something, if you got something out of this, please let me know by hitting the like button and comment below. What else would you like to see me tackle? I mean, if you've been watching me and you know what I do, what are some things that you want to see in greater detail? I'd like to do an advanced tutorial on building. I'd like to do one where we do some windows as walls and stuff like that, where we really go off grid, because most of this was on grid. I'd really like to do one where we go off grid. I'd like to get into details about how to do some things with paths. What are some other things that you'd like to know? So if you found this helpful, please hit the like button. If you're new, if you're just finding me for the first time, and you're really into this kind of stuff, this realistic aesthetic really gets you, consider joining the Bro Nation Discord. There's a link in the description below. It is a community that was formed for Planet Coaster, but we do have a big group that are playing Planet Zoo, myself included, and it's this aesthetic. It's this super realistic aesthetic. You will be amazed. There are people far greater than I am at this, and they are simply fantastic. So if you're really into this super realistic aesthetic, hop on to Bro Nation, the Discord server, and we will be more than happy. We have tons of people who are friendly and willing to help you get better and share their tips and tricks with you. So if you haven't subscribed to me, please consider doing so. And with all that being said, have yourself a great day, great night, great whatever, and I will see you for the next tutorial real soon. Take care, everyone. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.